I pressed the button for the lobby because that was the only place I knew how to get back to myself. The elevator doors slid shut with the soft, rubbery cough they always make, and the cabin hummed as it began to descend. It was late, past midnight. The office tower had thinned out to the kind of silence that feels intentional, like the building itself is trying not to be noticed. I stood alone, briefcase in one hand, phone in the other, watching my reflection float in the brushed steel walls. I remember thinking I looked older than I felt. The display above the doors lit up with a number. 31. That was right. I worked on 31. I had memorized the button by touch after years of pressing it without looking. The lift passed 30, then 29, then skipped. The display blinked and jumped straight to 24. No slowing. Just a smooth glide downward, as if the missing floors had never existed. I frowned and glanced at the control panel. Nothing unusual. No warning lights. No emergency icon. The button still glowed calmly, waiting for input like obedient little promises. I told myself it was a display glitch. Those happen. I had once spent 3 weeks fighting an accounting error that turned out to be a missing decimal point. Machines lie all the time. You just correct them and move on. The lift passed 23, then 22, then it skipped again. This time it jumped from 22 to 17. I felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. Just that tightening behind the eyes that means something is out of place and you do not have a name for it yet. I pressed the lobby button again. It blinked once, then stayed lit. The lift kept going. 17, 16, 15, then straight to 9. I laughed. Out loud. The sound came back wrong, flattened by the enclosed space. Okay, I said, because saying things out loud sometimes forces them to behave. The lift slowed. The number 8 appeared. The cabin jolted slightly, then the doors opened. But it was not the 8th floor. The building I worked in had a standard layout. Open offices, glass meeting rooms, neutral carpets. I had walked every floor at least once during drills or late-night wanderings. What stood in front of me was none of that. The doors opened onto a long corridor with a ceiling too low for comfort and walls painted a color that could not decide if it was yellow or gray. The lights buzzed faintly, not flickering, just tired. The carpet was thin and worn smooth in places like something had been dragged across it again and again. There were no windows, no signs, no office doors, just a hallway that curved gently to the left, disappearing out of sight. I stayed inside the lift. The doors waited. After a few seconds, they began to close. I stuck my hand out on instinct. The doors met my palm and slid back open. Wrong floor, I said to the empty hallway. The hallway did not argue. I withdrew my hand. The doors closed. The lift resumed its descent. My heart rate picked up. Still manageable. Still logical. I pulled out my phone. No signal. That was not unusual either. The building had dead zones. I had complained about them during meetings where people nodded and wrote things down that never became real. The lift passed 7, then jumped to 3, then stopped. The doors opened again. This time, I could smell it before I saw it. Old water. Rushed. Something metallic and damp. The kind of smell that gets into your clothes. Beyond the doors was a concrete landing. Exposed pipes running along the ceiling like veins. A single fluorescent tube hummed overhead, casting a hard white light that made everything look flat and unreal. There was a door on the far wall. Gray. Industrial. Just a keypad. I did not move. The door stayed open longer this time. I pressed the close button. Nothing happened. I pressed the lobby button again. Then every button, one after the other, until the panel looked like a constellation of glowing dots. The lift did not respond. The fluorescent light above me flickered once, then steadied. I became aware of the sound of my own breathing. Too loud. Too fast. Emergency, I said, and pressed the red button. The intercom crackled. Static hissed, then a voice came through. Flat. Neutral. Male. Please state your floor. I stared at the display. It was blank. I don't know, I said. The display is off. I think the elevator is malfunctioning. There was a pause, long enough to be uncomfortable. Please state your floor, the voice repeated. I can't, I said. It skipped. It keeps skipping floors. Another pause. Remain calm, the voice said. Assistance is on the way. The intercom clicked off. I exhaled slowly, trying to regain control. Panic wastes oxygen. That was something my father used to say when he wanted to sound wise. I leaned back against the wall and slid down until I was sitting on the floor. The metal was cold through my shirt. Minutes passed, or seconds. Time becomes unreliable when you're watching it too closely. The lights dimmed. The lift shuddered. The doors closed. No, I said, scrambling to my feet. The cabin lurched upward this time. The display flickered back on. 1, then 5, then 12. My stomach dropped as the lift accelerated faster than it should have. The pressure in my ears changed rapidly, making the space feel tighter, smaller. 12, 13, then straight to 26. I grabbed the handrail as the lift jolted to a stop. The doors opened. This floor looked closer to home. Glass walls, gray carpet, a water cooler humming softly near a bank of cubicles. Relief washed over me so fast it made me dizzy. I stepped out. The carpet was warm under my shoes, like it had been recently vacuumed. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. I took 3 steps forward. Then I noticed something wrong. The cubicles were arranged incorrectly. The angles were off. The spacing was too tight, as if someone had tried to recreate the layout from memory and failed. There were desks, computers, chairs, but no personal items, no photos, no coffee mugs, no coats draped over chair backs. Every screen was on. Every screen displayed the same thing. A live feed of the elevator interior. Of me. I turned around slowly. The lift doors were still open behind me. Inside the cabin, the camera in the corner stared back with its unblinking red light. I backed away, my heel catching on the edge of the carpet. I nearly fell. This isn't funny, I said to no one. The screens flickered. The image changed. Now they showed different angles. Close-ups. My hands. My face. The pulse jumping in my neck. I ran. The corridor seemed longer than it had any right to be. The lights overhead stretched the shadows in unnatural ways. My footsteps sounded wrong, delayed, like the sound was trying to catch up to me. At the end of the corridor was a stairwell door. I threw myself against it. It did not budge. No push bar, just a smooth slab of metal like the door on the concrete landing. I turned back toward the lift. The doors were closing. Wait, I shouted, sprinting back. The doors met with a soft thud and sealed shut just as I reached them. The display lit up again. 26, then 19, then 11, then nothing. I stood there, panting, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the doors. Okay, I said again. Louder this time. Firmer. Okay. The lights on the floor flickered once, then went out entirely. The screens went black. In the darkness, the only light came from the elevator panel, still glowing faintly through the doors. I waited. I did not know how long. Eventually, the doors opened again. This floor was wrong in a quieter way. It looked like a hospital corridor, but stripped down. White walls, linoleum floors, doors evenly spaced on either side, each with a small rectangular window. The lights were dimmed to night mode, casting everything in a bluish hue. There was a sign on the wall, Level 0. I frowned. The building did not have a Level 0. I stepped out cautiously. The corridor was silent except for the faint beeping of something far away. A slow, steady rhythm. I approached the nearest door and peered through the window. Inside was a small room. A bed, a chair, medical equipment arranged neatly along the walls. The bed was occupied. I recoiled instinctively, then forced myself to look again. The person in the bed was me, or close enough to be deeply unsettling. Same build, same face, slightly thinner, paler, eyes closed, tubes running from arms and mouth into machines that pulsed and hummed softly. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the wall. "This isn't real," I whispered. The beeping grew louder. A door opened further down the corridor. Footsteps approached, measured, unhurried. I ran back into the elevator and hammered the buttons. The doors closed. The lift dropped. Fast. The pressure change made my vision blur. My stomach lurched violently as the numbers flashed by too quickly to read. I screamed. The sound tore out of me without permission. The lift stopped abruptly, throwing me to the floor. The lights went out. Total darkness. For a moment, there was nothing but my breathing and the pounding of blood in my ears. Then I heard it. Scraping. Something moving along the outside of the lift. Slow. Deliberate. Metal against metal. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone, turning on the flashlight. The narrow beam illuminated the walls, the panel, the floor. The scraping grew closer. It sounded like fingernails. A face appeared in the narrow gap between the doors. Not human. Not quite. The skin was stretched too tight, pulled over bone like it had been wrapped in a hurry. The eyes were sunken and glossy, reflecting the light in a way that made them look wet. It smiled. The doors began to open. I scrambled backward, pressing myself into the corner. The thing outside the lift tilted its head, studying me with curiosity rather than hunger. The doors stopped, jammed halfway open. The display flickered. Then the lift dropped again. The face vanished with a sound like paper tearing. I lay on the floor, sobbing now, all pretense of control gone. The lift did not stop. It skipped floors endlessly. Numbers appeared and vanished without pattern. Negative numbers. Letters. Symbols I did not recognize. The temperature changed constantly, cycling from freezing cold to stifling heat. Voices began to whisper through the intercom. Not words. Not quite. Just fragments of sound that felt like they were aimed directly at my thoughts. At some point, the doors opened again. This floor was familiar. My apartment building lobby. The old couch near the mailboxes. The chip tile. The security desk that was never staffed. I crawled out of the lift on hands and knees, too afraid to stand, too afraid to believe. The air smelled right. Dust, an old carpet, and faint traces of cleaning solution. I dragged myself toward the exit. The glass doors slid open. Outside was the street, but the sky was wrong. Too close. Too low. I stepped out anyway. The street was empty. No cars. No people. No sound. I turned back. The building behind me was not my apartment building anymore. It was the office tower. The lift doors stood open, waiting. The display above them glowed. Lobby. I laughed then. A broken, hysterical sound that echoed far too loudly in the empty street. I backed away. The lift doors began to close. No, I said. I ran toward them, but the distance stretched, the ground pulling away beneath my feet like a treadmill set too fast. The doors shut. The building vanished. I stood alone under a sky that pressed down on me like a lid. The ground beneath my feet trembled. A rectangle of light appeared in front of me. The lift doors opened. I stepped inside without thinking. The doors closed. The lift hummed. The display lit up. 31, 32, 33. Then it skipped. I'm still inside. The lift still moves. Sometimes it opens on places I almost recognize. Sometimes it opens on things I wish I could forget. It never stops where it should. And I no longer press the buttons. I am afraid that if I choose a floor, it will finally choose me back.